Welcome everybody. I'm delighted today to actually introduce our guests. I heard Graham speak at an event quite recently, and I was really impressed with the work that is being done, particularly in relation to technology, and I thought it was really important to set this up. And we do have a large number of special schools in Challenge Partners as part of our community, but this is also an important piece of work, I think, for multi-academy trusts and other organisations, not just special schools. But Graham is, Graham Quinn, he can wave. There you are, Graham.
Hi guys.
Hey, there he is. and Graham is the CEO of the New Bridge Group, which is a cluster of organisations based in Oldham that support the learning, social and pastoral needs of actually it's over 1,200 children and young people. So that's a huge kind of number of people who really benefit from the work that's being done there. And these young people with additional needs are aged between 4 and 25. And Graham fervently believes that our young people should be given the skills and attributes to enable them to contribute and participate in their communities and society as a whole by working together to create opportunities and high quality individual pathways for all the young people that they serve. So it's a huge ambition and very, very laudable what you're doing there in Oldham. And we've got Jenny with us, and they can see the lovely Jenny. So Jenny Dunne is presently the Executive Director of Learning at the New Bridge Multi-Academy Trust, and she has 20 years experience of working with children and young people, both in mainstream primary and also special educational needs. Now, Jenny currently leads on the development of curriculum and assessment systems within the Multi-Academy Trust to ensure the whole curriculum is purposeful for each individual learner, and that you can capture their progress and making sure they not only make academic progress, but also that holistic progress, which is so terribly important. Now, alongside that, Jenny leads on the one-to-one iPad strategy across the map, which is what we're particularly going to look at today. And she's passionate about technology complementing, not taking over, but actually complementing and enhancing the teaching and learning, both academically, but also in developing purposeful life skills. So Jenny, as you can see, is passionate to ensure all children and young people access a broad, balanced, yet personalised curriculum offer. She believes that there should be no barriers to learning and that cannot be broken down to ensure each learner reaches their potential destination to play a meaningful part in the community in which they live. So this is an organisation which is absolutely rooted in what we might define as moral purpose for young people, and a huge investment for those young people, and particularly as today we're going to look at this investment in technology and becoming an Apple one-to-one school, the opportunities and challenges that it actually presents to us.
Brilliant, thank you very much. I'll just do the task now of trying to share my screen and do it successful with sound. Oh, here we go. And I shall pop it into slideshow. Ooh. Let me just move that.
Okay,
there we go. Perfect. I'll just move that out of the way. Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for inviting us. As Sue pointed out, Jenny and myself from the New Bridge Multi-Academy Trust and Group based in the northwest of England. Now stretching out from Oldham, really, so it's Oldham, Tameside and Rochdale. And we'll start off, well, I'll start off with the irony of all of this. I'm about the least techie person it's possible to be. So you need to bear in mind with, if anybody's got any particular technical questions, we will need to take that away, or Jenny might be able to answer it, but we will need to take that away and talk to our technicians and our experts. So I'm coming at the presentation today from a position of transforming learning to some extent, and how impactful we have seen the technology that we're introducing in all of our schools and that what the impact that has had for our young people. But please believe me, I'm certainly not a technical guru, and I am very limited in my skills around technology. So that's sort of an introduction. The other thing to say really, really clearly is we're very much on a journey. Our trust is very much on a journey. Our schools are on journeys. And we're not coming at this in any way as a position of being experts in the field. We're coming at this as being, we're sharing our experiences. But what we love to do as schools and as a trust is partner up with like-minded organisations who also want to find solutions. So if any bits of what we talk about today you're particularly interested in, or you've probably got more expertise than we have, we would love to hook up in the future. So we're giving our journeys, we're giving our experiences. Some of the things we do well, some of the things we're not particularly strong at, but that's sort of the way that we're approaching this presentation, not in a way that we're in any way experts. We're on a journey, as we all are, in relation to working with our young people. So I'm going to kick off with a little bit about our schools and tell you a little bit about the trusts. So we have 5 schools, soon to be 7, 1 college, post-19 provision, and we have about 9 or 10 sites across Oldham and Tameside. We're about to move into Rochdale. We've been asked to deliver a free school for young people on the autistic continuum in Rochdale, but that was in wave 13, Jenny, I think it was. And we've been delayed in relation to that. So we do say we're part of Rochdale, even though at this point in time, we've not got any schools there. So we have quite a number of organisations across those 3 local authorities. As Sue pointed out, we support about 1,200 young people. Our largest school has got 550 children in it. And we have our smallest college has 12. So we range from quite medium-sized organisations to having quite small organisations. And I'll talk a little bit about some of those on the next slide. Across the organisation, we have about 600 to 650 staff. And that's important, really, that we're not saying that to sort of say, look at us, aren't we huge? We're saying that because I think it's important when we start to look at the context of what one-to-one is. So at the minute, we have about 2,500 iPads for our young people and our staff, because obviously one of the main remits of the Apple One-to-One project is every member of staff, every single member of staff, and every young person, and I mean every young person, has their own iPad. Now, in relation to that, there are many challenges, particularly with some of the young people with more profound and multiple learning difficulties. We'll pick up those as we go through our discussions and our journeys, because we've not found the solutions necessarily for those young people yet. And some of our staff teams, likewise, we've not necessarily found the solutions to how they use their iPads most effectively. But every single member of staff, every single young person has an iPad designated to them. So a little bit about our schools. So we're going to go into, that's where we are. We do that because we did an international conference a while ago, Jenny and I, for Norwegian schools, so they needed to know exactly where we were in the UK, although they all spoke better English than we did, because they all, I think we needed subtitle at the bottom with my northern accent, but they all spoke better English than we did, clearly. So these are our organisations. I'll just give you a bit of a context, just so that hopefully you can sort of link in with where your schools are at, and you get an idea, well, oh yeah, that's like our school. So Newbridge School and Newbridge Learning Centre is an organisation for secondary age young people aged between 11 and 19, and the young people that attend Newbridge School all have an EHCP, and it's classified as a generic school. So it's our largest organisation with 550 children and young people in there. It's on 2 sites, three sites now. We've just opened another site in last September, didn't we? On 3 sites. So we have young people in Newbridge who are working at very early levels of the curriculum offer. So those young people that historically were working at P1 to P3 using old money, right the way through to young people who are working at quite high levels. So GCSEs, we don't have any young people doing A levels at Newbridge, but we do have a range of young people in between. So young people with profound and multiple learning difficulties, ASC, some young people with challenging behaviours, the majority of young people with moderate learning difficulties, some young people with severe learning difficulties, etc., etc. You get the sort of gist as to the young people that are at Newbridge. So that was the start. About 5 or 6 years ago, that was became an academy, a single school academy, and was the start of the Academy Trust. So it was I was fortunate to be the head teacher at Newbridge. Although we did make an error calling the trust Newbridge Multi-Academy Trust, because everyone now associates it with the school. And obviously, as we've grown, that's not necessarily the best solution for us. The next organisation, Newbridge College, and that's a 16 to 19 college in the middle of Oldham Town Centre, and that supports young people aged between 16 and 19. And a lot of those young people are on pre-internship pathways, a number of young people doing specialist curriculum learning areas, and probably the range of young people there, entry level 2 to level 1, level 2, I'm guessing, in that college. Interestingly, the majority of the young people there are going to have a destination that links directly to contribution to communities. And that might be volunteering, it might be independence in their communities, it might be the world of work. And we've had a couple of young people move on to onto university from the college as well. So Newbridge College is a very interesting and dynamic place, and works in collaboration with some of our mainstream sector colleges, Oldham College and Tameside College. Onto Hollingwood Academy. That was it used to be one of our newest schools. We opened it 5 years ago for young people on the autistic continuum, and interestingly opened as a free school with a place number of 140. Up to yesterday, I think we've got about 260 children in there. So there's been massive growth around those young people. And that's a school for children aged between 4 and 19. Interestingly, in our area in the Northwest, the two key areas of growth that we see are young people on the autistic continuum and young people with social, emotional, mental health needs. And interestingly, we've got a group of young people that sit in between that as well, which is sometimes tricky to sort of place into one school or another. So Hollingwood Academy supports young people that are probably quite near the mainstream. So we offer a differentiated national curriculum type model there. So right the way through from little ones in reception, right the way through to children at Key Stage 4 doing GCSEs and Key Stage 5 doing A-levels. And we do have a number of young people there who move on to university. So their main barrier to learning is their autism. And at times, many of us often think, blimey, why are these young people not in mainstream provision? And Sue and I and Liz were having a conversation before about the next step maybe for our sector is to understand how we as special school colleagues can support our mainstream colleagues in really getting a dynamic and exciting curriculum offer that moves between mainstream and has that fluidity between mainstream and special provision. And I think that technology certainly has a place to play within all of that. Onto Springbrook Academy. Springbrook Academy is on 2 sites. It's a school for young people with social, emotional, mental health needs. With one site supports our children who are aged between 4 and 11, and another site supports our young people who are aged between 11 and 14. And we, again, it's quite a small school, about 100 children in there, and a lot of those young people have been permanently excluded from mainstream provision. So you can guess the type of young people that are in there, young people that have struggled within mainstream schools and then come to us with significant challenges, particularly around trust and engagement. And we do an awful lot of work with those youngsters around just building up relationships before they can continue on their learning journeys. So a very dynamic and interesting place to work. I'm based there at this point in time. Hawthorne School is one of our schools over in Tameside for little ones aged between 4 and 11, and again designated as for children with complex needs. Another one of our schools that's challenged around growth, and we're just negotiating through a new build project with Tameside Local Authority. We're hoping to get that over the line in the near future, and we're hoping for significant multi-million-pound investment for our little ones over in Tameside. And to put that into context, Hawthorne's is designed for 60 children and presently has 160 in that building. So massively, massively oversubscribed, and massive capacity issues there. To be fair to the local authority, Tameside Local Authority, they've accepted that, and we're now working through a change agenda with Hawthorns that will be very, very exciting. Springboard Project is one of our new schools for young people aged between 14 and 19, for young people with SEMH. And that was really designed on the back of the significant challenge of many young people in the Northwest with that label going NEET at 16, or probably even before 16, usually around Key Stage 4, 16 plus. And what we're trying to do with that is offer an alternative offer, particularly an alternative curriculum offer that's very practical, based around communities, based around doing, to give the young people real purpose. In the Northwest, we have significant issues around gangs, we have significant issues around drugs. So it's understanding and trying to offer alternatives to that lifestyle. So the Springboard Project is instrumental of driving that ambition forward. We're a long way to go with that. It's a real challenge, as you can imagine, dealing with East Manchester youngsters who are 16, 17, 18, who are coming from culturally very different perspective than most of us and most of the staff teams. So that's really, really interesting. And we're doing lots of work with some of the universities in trying to understand the dynamic there, particularly around families and how we can engage with families, particularly in a much better, more productive way. So those are all of our schools. And then on to Newbridge Horizons, which is a 19 plus provision. It's part of the group, not part of the trust. Those of you that are involved in 19 plus stuff will be aware of that significant issue, that they can't be part of a trust, they have to be part of a different organisation. And that's for all of the young people, and I'm guessing that many of you might face the same challenge, that we can't deem ourselves outstanding schools using Ofsted terminology if at 18 and 19 the young people have to move back into their homes with their families. And that was certainly the case probably 5 or 6 years ago for many of our youngsters, particularly those young people with autism and challenging behaviour, and those young people with profound and multiple learning difficulties. Many of the local authority provisions had closed down over the last 5 or 6 years. And the private market hadn't responded to meeting the needs of those young people, or if it had responded, it had priced themselves out really, because it was just so expensive. So we developed provision about 5 or 6 years ago that set off with 4 young people who accessed that provision. Now 140 young people on a weekly basis go through Horizons, which gives real support for those young people and particularly their families. And then the last bit is Future Finders Employability College, which is an SPI. We were inspected a week ago, just before half term, Thursday and Friday before half term. Oh joy, you just love that, don't you? 2 HMIs for 12 young people for 2 days. So they were super, they were really lovely people, but you can imagine it was a little bit overkill. And that really just is a pre-internship college for young people who haven't quite got into the world of work at 18, 19, need the extra year, just that bit of extra push to move into the world of work. So it's probably what you could be called some of our highest achieving youngsters within the trust. And we set that up about 3 years ago now, just to ensure that those young people got that extra boost to be able to move into the world of work, so that would give them a really clear direction of travel for their future lives. So without further ado, I'm going to put a video on which sort of gives an idea of the young people. We do apologise for it might be a little bit jerky, but it'll give you a sense of the youngsters and those young people that we work with. So these are children and young people within our trust.
Okay. I'll just skip the next one and go back to it. Do the video.
All right.
Okay, I hope you all enjoyed that and gave you a flavour of the amazing young people that we work with and the staff that support all of that learning. So as Graham said, Newbridge became a single multi-academy trust, and then we started to grow our group of schools. And at that point, we felt it was really, really important. We reviewed our vision, our mission statement and our values, so that any school that we undertook or any school that joined us, they were really clear we were the right fit for them, that they had that same moral purpose that we have. And that is that we will create meaningful futures for all, not just for our young people. We want to do that for our staff and support our families in being able to create meaningful futures for themselves. So we do really, really embrace learning together, learning for all. And again, that isn't just our young people, that's everybody. And we've got a really strong training and development team and packages that we're continually developing. And we'll touch on that in how that was absolutely instrumental in the implementation of the iPads later on. So we've got some clear values there that are set out, and we really do believe that video captures how we are collaborative, we're caring, we're creative, we do try to inspire. And from that inspiration, quite often it's the young people who inspire us. We have amazing staff who will inspire us, and quite often they're not the ones that we would expect. They're not up front and central, and some real inspirational pieces come from those staff. And I think it's really nice that there's that collaboration, and staff are really comfortable to try new things and to inspire and come forward and show other people what work they've done. We are extremely passionate, and we have got lots of video clips in this presentation, because there's no other way for us to articulate and get across our message. Graham and I could sit here and waffle on for an hour, but I think seeing it in context with our staff and our young people really shows how passionate we are to make this work and to make anything work. So when we started the journey of the one-to-one technology, I'm just going to move forward. We had our vision that we wanted to create meaningful futures, and we needed to make sure that all of our mission, our vision and our values were embedded in the one-to-one project. It wasn't just going to be an add-on to our curriculum. It wasn't just going to be a device given to people and we'll see how it goes. We really had to think about it. And Graham and I are really, really open when we're speaking to people. About 5 years ago, we tried to introduce a one-to-one, an iPad project. It wasn't one-to-one. We did it differently in curriculum areas, and it failed. It didn't work. It didn't have the impact we wanted it to have. So we pressed pause. We looked at why it had gone wrong. We reached out and worked with Apple and with third-party companies to really review why the vision we had of technology enhancing teaching and learning hadn't worked as well as we wanted it to, and not had the impact. And that really took us to that point of one-to-one devices was the solution, not technology sitting in curriculum areas. So I won't read that out to you. This was a vision that I put together around the use of technology and why we were doing it. And again, it reiterates that not only academic progress to be made using technology, but for our young people to be able to use the technology that sits around their world, that sits in their home, that sits in their hands quite often. And during COVID, I think everywhere you go, there's touch screens and technology to use to order simple things like a McDonald's or food. So upskilling our young people to be able to use the technology in their world for life is equally as important as it complementing the academic curriculum. So going one-to-one, I've got a couple of slides to show you, and again, they are screenshots, and if people want more information on these, please do contact us. So it was about 3 years ago, we decided we were going to go one-to-one. Graham and myself have both been really fortunate in part of the SSAT. We managed to go out to Cupertino and do some work with Apple as part of their leadership program. And that really, really enabled us to focus and look at what we wanted to do. Graham went first, came back from America all excited and said, we've got 18 months, I want one-to-one technology in everyone's hands. At which point we all said, Okay, and we then look to our operations director, who is amazing at planning things out. And I'll go on and looked at how we could implement iPads across all of our schools with all staff and all students, and it actually sit in the curriculum and complement it, not be an add-on. So our operations director created this wonderful Gantt chart, and I've just done a screenshot. It goes on really in detail around absolutely everything that needed to be done. And this was absolutely crucial. Anybody undertaking the use of technology and how it will enhance, really this level of detail is needed before you even look at getting iPads into hands of anybody. So Rita organised that and what it would look like throughout all of our sites and all of our organisations. We then worked with our heads and our leaders and discussed how this would work. One really important thing was we staged it. We didn't do all schools at once. It was only staged with short periods of time, but what it allowed was us to stop, reflect what worked at that site, what worked at that school, what didn't, how do we need to tweak it for the next one. So our first school, Hollingwood Academy, is just ready or is in the process of applying for Apple distinguished status and to be an ADS school. And there's 2 other schools who will be in the next round, I have no doubt. So it has been a phased approach and very much, as Graham said before, a learning journey. So this shot here shows some of the work that we did to start the process with our leadership team. So this is the Hollingwood team and one of our technicians. And as I said before, we work with Apple and a third party, Jigsaw 24. Again, if you have that opportunity to work with a third party to facilitate some of that thinking, and this came with the purchase of the iPads through this company and through Apple, we got so many days that we could use how we wanted. And we used the expertise of people who've implemented this in other schools to support and guide our leaders through this huge project that they were going to undertake. And we created this big timeline, and if you go in lots of our heads offices, they're still up on the wall, and we're due to take them down now. COVID has certainly sped up some of our visions and our aspirations, and in September we're going to undertake sort of the next phase of our vision for the use of technology. I've put on there it was a whole school approach, and it absolutely has to be a whole school approach. There are challenges, there are people, as Graham said himself, who are not technologically minded, and the fear of bringing a set of iPads in and teaching and learning being driven by technology did worry some of our staff. And some of the slides later will talk about how we supported them to work through that. And some of those now are our absolute champions in the use of technology. And it's really changed that the way they teach and opened up opportunities that they said wouldn't be there without the technology.
Just for clarity, and if there's any business people amongst us, one of the questions I often get asked is the cost, and we have a blended approach now. We purchase some, we've been given some by the government over the last 14 months, but the majority of our devices are leased. And that was a strategic decision on the back that our leasehold agreements are for 2 years. And the reason that we lease is that the technology that's available on an iPad is changing so rapidly that we believe having something that's probably 2, 3, 4 years out of date won't enable our young people. So the areas that we're particularly interested in around the development of the iPad links to eye gaze. And for those of you that have got young people with more profound and multiple learning difficulties, you'll be aware that eye gaze technology has been around for quite a while. The cost can be quite prohibitive for individuals, but the face recognition opportunities that the iPad now gives us, we're hoping and we're working with Apple to see whether we can link that into the young people to get the eye gaze technology linked to all of that. So it's just one example of how. Another one is that the newer iPads have now QR coders built in. And later on, you'll see an example where somebody who's going into the world of work uses their device to scan a QR code when they're in the world of work, and that just helps clue them in as to what tasks they're needing to do on that certain day. Now, if they'd have had an iPad from 5 years ago, the QR code wasn't built into the actual iPad. So we do believe that having sort of a mixed approach, blended approach to the purchase and to the leasing of them is our best solution. But I'm happy. I can't really, because some of that's quite sensitive around the commercial aspect. I'm happy to have calls offline around all of that to get best value. But I have never, ever driven forward an initiative that has been better value in my whole career. And I've been doing this work for 30 odd years. So I can only say to you all that it is not prohibitive. The cost is absolutely not prohibitive. You know, it is incredibly brilliant value. But I'll happily talk offline to anybody that wants to drop me an email. Jenny's also aware of all of that. So, you know, she can advise on that as well. So is there a breakout now?
In a few minutes.
In a few minutes.
Do our journey. Start
Okay.
that, and there's one through there.
Okay. Right. So what we thought we'd try and do now is give you some actual examples of this is in all of the schools, but not all of the schools. And we're going to run through some different areas where we've seen real impact with one-to-one. So we're going to talk about curriculum, around the wellbeing, safeguarding, assessment, what it's done for our workforce, what it's done for comms, accountability and governance, and training and development. So we'll try and give you a flavour of some examples where we've seen real impact in relation to one-to-one and what that's done for us. So we'll start with the curriculum, and we use a platform called Shobi. All of the schools use Shobi. Jenny is our Shobi expert. So it might be better, because normally I waffle on about Shobi and get it wrong. So it might be better for Jenny to give you some actual examples around how Shobi is impacted on some of the young people.
Yeah, and I apologise then if other slides refer to this further on, but this is a really good point just to talk about Shobi. So when we introduced the devices, we needed to look at a platform of sending work out to young people sending work back, marking it, and it being easily accessible. So we did look at lots of different platforms, and we went with Shobi, and this was pre-COVID. And one of the benefits, and this benefits staff and young people, and the impact of it is huge, is that young people can send their work, sort of just, it goes through the air of the that's in the classroom to the teacher's device. They can then leave a voice recording tagged into a part of the work if they need to check for punctuation, grammar, or wow, that's an amazing pronoun that you've used. It's then sent back to the young person in split seconds. The young person then can look at those comments to that point in their work. They're not trying to search and relate to a comment at the bottom of a page, and edit that work there and then. So there's this absolute flow, and it gets away from either a teacher having to go around the class and doing that verbal feedback in real time, or young people standing waiting for a teacher or a support assistant to look at their work. We've also seen some really powerful uses of Shobi. We had a young man who was a selective mute, and quite often would display some behaviours, and more often than not would self-exit. We introduced Shobi, and all of a sudden he started colouring the page red and sending it to the teacher. What we realised is when he coloured the page red and sent it to the teacher, he didn't understand. He didn't have that confidence to put his hand up. He wouldn't verbally ask for help, even though he was able to. What it meant then was the TA was really subtly able to go and stand at the side, go over the task without anyone in the class knowing, and he could access his work. That over time enabled that young man to find his voice, and before COVID was on placement up at one of our atrium cafes, working, having conversations and using technology. So there's so many stories around that we could share. I will talk a little bit more about Shobi, but when we get later on in the presentation, in how actually using it and having it embedded really did offer us a great solution in lockdown and during the COVID period. The next one, using the accessibility functions of iPads. Everyone knows there's inbuilt features. I was lucky enough to be in another presentation, and I was a guest at accessibility features, and I thought I was pretty savvy, and we had lots of those features being used in our school, and it was on the latest technology, and I was blown away by the accessibility features. So it is really crucial, if you're doing this journey, as I've said, to link into those third parties, link into other people who are using the technology, because those inbuilt features open up the world of learning to lots of young people. So there's the colouring of the page for dyslexia, there's the voice recording, which again are those first steps to a young person being able to write on the page, if they can just record it, and then we'll work on those skills of actually being able to write it on the page. Just screenshots. There's so many accessibility features, enlarging text, voice to audio, audio to voice. So it's huge. And I thought we were really ahead of the game. After watching that presentation, we need to get on it again and really look at that.
One of the other areas that's really important, and Jenny pointed out at the beginning, is that we use the iPads as absolutely an essential part of every curriculum area. It's not just designed for ICT and technology. You know, the young people carry them all around, and we have cases for those young people that maybe at times may drop them, or at times may throw them. And we accept that there might be some damage. That is what it is, you know. But the young people constantly carry their iPads around with them. Linking to the second point there, particularly with reading, we've seen amazing impact, and there's a little clip I think later on about our SEMH learners, and we did a lot of work with research with the universities around reading ages and SEMH learners, and it doesn't take a genius to work out, it came out as being particularly low. So we've developed Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 program using iPads, reading with families. And you'll see the impact of all of that, but that's been particularly powerful around raising reading ages, and then therefore opening up the curriculum for those youngsters. One of the things that we felt we'd lost over the last few years, we were in arts college a number of years ago, and we felt that the arts have been particularly had to take a step back with curriculum developments over the last number of years, and we wanted to accelerate the arts. And we felt that iPads gave a real opportunity to do that. So, you know, the young people are encouraged to record work that they're learning in a different way, using iMovie Maker, etc. In music areas, are using GarageBand on a regular basis. So, because it's so vast and we have so many different apps around the place, the young people are the ones that actually evaluate the apps. So each school has a team of iPad champions. They also have genius bars, where this is the bit where I often go to them to say, I'm not really quite certain how to use my iPad when I'm doing this. Can you just help me? Which is particularly empowering for the young people, as you can imagine, because I'm pretty clueless when it comes to them. But they also are in a position where they go through and they monitor and evaluate apps for science areas or for early learning areas, whatever that will be, so it's going through a series of iteration to actually ensure that it's appropriate for the young people. So the young people are absolutely engaged in that process. I picked up some of the post-16 bits early on, particularly around the QR codes, and that's been really powerful. And one of the main reasons is that, I don't know if you guys are in the same position, but we had many young people, if they were working on work experience or pre-internships, walking around with big files, paper files, and then sort of going to certain color coded areas. So it's sort of made them stand out slightly to the rest of the workforce. Whereas carrying an iPad around or carrying an iPhone around or phone around actually is absolutely fine, because everybody else does that. So it meant that certainly our young people that may feel that they were losing face, if they didn't understand it, have used the iPad massively around their community work. So again, there's too many sort of examples to give you, but it's just a flavour of the impact that it's had in relation to some of our learners.
Okay, we're going to show you a video clip now that'll hopefully put some of that into context. And apologies if it is a little bit out of sync. Oh, let me go back. Sorry, it's just loading it. Here we go.
Hi, my name's Leah Meadows. This lesson was all about our Norman topic, which is our history topic. We created stop motion videos based on parts of a castle. The kids basically had to recreate one out of Play-Doh using different labels, taking a picture of each frame as they went to describe the different elements of a castle.
Okay guys, so pause there just for a second please.
Okay.
We're just going to have a little talk about where we're up to and which features that we've used. Okay, William's working on the board, so if you could pay attention, William's going to play the stop motion video for us. So can you see everyone, how he's got it going through all his different ones. He's got his mop, and he's got his keep, he's got his drawbridge. We can decrease our speed, and that's going to split William's frames even longer.
Today we have used the iPads on an app called Showbit. Showbit is kind of the platform that I've used across curricular subjects. All the work that I want them to do is uploaded onto there. The learning objectives are going on there as well, so they're all self-assessed. It's allowing me to send their work to them, but it also allows them to send it back to me. I can track each week where they're up to. I can mark, leave voice notes, write on the document, send it back to them immediately, and they can then create their next steps, and that advances their learning.
Ellie, on your Showbit now, I forwarded you some feedback, darling. So can you please go to Showbit and respond back to my feedback?
Okay, so hopefully that gave you a little flavour of what that looks like in the curriculum and how that has an impact. So I'll hand over to Graham around being healthy and safeguarding.
Oh, yeah, I mean, again, we wanted to broaden out slightly away into the wider curriculum and how iPads have enhanced our offer. And I'll pick up just two or three of the list there. And this has been particularly important, certainly since the last 14 months or so. And a couple there that are really interesting. The opportunity for the young people around mindfulness and yoga to actually help moderate their own behaviours. So I often go around our schools, and I'll see young people in breakout areas, in quiet areas, looking at their iPads, breathing, or standing or sitting in a certain way, and I'm often thinking, I'm not convinced they're really engaged in learning. And then I'll go and actually look a little bit closer to what they're doing, and they're practicing breathing through a breathing app. And lots of that is about regulating their own behaviours. And interestingly, when you actually ask the young people as to what they're engaged in, they really do understand that. So I think that in many ways, all of the applications that are available in relation to being healthy and ensuring that the young people that their well-being is being supported as well as it can be. There's a vast array of them, and we are very comfortable in that young person exiting a classroom and actually using their iPad to moderate their own behaviours, or just take time to be able just to calm if that's where they need to be. Clearly, there is also the opportunity that's listed as number 2 bullet point, that All of our CPOMs is on all of the iPads, on the staff iPads. So we've noticed a significant improvement in the way that any issues that we have with young people, how we can actually manage those and deal with them, because it's so instant. So staff can quickly either ask for support or log what's going on in classrooms or in areas of the school, and teams can support accordingly. So CPOMs is very appropriate and applicable to use it on the iPads. So again, only obviously it will be only certain members of staff that would have access to that sort of information. But around safeguarding, it's certainly improved many of our processes.
Okay, we're going to show you another clip now, and if I've got the clips in the right order, it'll be the right one. And this is one of our nurture groups. So young people who are on the autistic continuum and been disengaged from learning, and a huge barrier to learning is about their self-consciousness about their work and listening to that feedback from either staff or from others. So I'm hoping it's the right clip and in the right place.
We did a list of adjectives yesterday. We did our list of our timeline yesterday. So we've got everything that we need to write now a book review. So we'll look at the board there. This is the document that I'm going to send to you via Shobi. Does anybody need a demonstration of how to do it? No, we're all happy. Okay, that's gone to you now. So the aim of today's lesson was to write a book review on Warhorse by Michael Moore-Purgold. We used the Shobi app to deliver the work to the students. The students then carry out the work. They will send the work to me. I can then mark the work and send a response back to the students.
So I like Shobi because I can get marks straight away by my teacher.
Also during the session I can use Apple Classroom, which allows me to watch while the students are doing their work, and I can advise the students while they're actually working, reminding them of vocab, grammar, sentences, punctuation, things like that. Finn, capitals for countries please. See on the board, you put England and Germany.
I think Shobi's really good because, like, our teacher, he can send the work to us, and then we can do our work and send it back. And I think other schools should use it because it's just great education for kids.
Once all the students had been marked, we then all got together at the front. We used Apple to mirror the students' work onto the board. We sat down and then we discussed and critiqued each person's piece of work. Who wants to show the work first? Topthorne is the same as Joey, and Albert is a good teacher because he taught Joey how to come to Albert when he wants to, and Albert taught Joey to plough. Anything else we could add about the main characters, do you think? How could you change that, Lucas?
You could add some more adjectives instead of just Joey is very pretty and shiny, Topthorne is like Joey, and Albert is very good teacher.
Okay, so what Lucas is saying there, instead of saying how they look, more about their characters, more character adjectives. So how would you, Lucas, describe Joey? Just one adjective from you, please. Courageous. One adjective. Brave. One from you, Liv.
also put like a camera after the horse.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's
Okay. Are you going to do that, Don?
We've just got a normal sentence and also then you cancel lessons on it. Seems like say.
Okay, she's used.
I went. I just try to make it.
Yeah, she's used it for
kind of weird.
emphasis. Okay. Right. All right.
Trying to make it weird.
That's fine. That's fine. Don't worry. I think that's just Olivia's style of writing. I think she likes to write that way.
Okay, I'll just pause that there. As you can see, all of those young people were really engaged in learning, and they were able to critique each other's work in a really positive way, either peer-to-peer or staff to the pupil.
I think Olivia was about to flatten.
Yeah. But before all of that, before the iPads were introduced, what Dougie there would experience is that the head down, not open to criticism, work being taken out of books, and it really stopped, and it was a barrier to learning. And through the iPads, that they're able, and they're really proud when their work is airdropped to the big screen. The amount of times Graham and I go in a classroom and young people just want to show you the work, what they've been doing. Quite often they want to show Graham because he doesn't know how they've done it. So then they get 10 minutes explaining what they've done. But, you know, it really has engaged learners who before perhaps were not as engaged as we liked.
I was interested across your schools, something we have for some of our lower ability pupils, because obviously with an iPad they're used to going on YouTube and looking at nursery rhymes and stuff like that, which they do at home. If they have it for, say, communication for the Prologue Quo to go, we have to try and lock certain apps so they don't use it, so they actually use it appropriately. Do you have that across your schools, where you have to have locks for certain iPads so they actually use it appropriately?
I think at the start of the project, that was certainly something we envisaged we would have to do. We do have certain things that are locked or blocked, and through the Apple Classrooms, you can manage when and where that young person can go on. So, for instance, if I'm doing a talk session and I want them to use a phonics program, through Classroom Manager, I can lock that young person into that app and they can't go anywhere else. So, you know, they've no option but the phonics app that I've got on there. But I think over a period of time, the young people have really got used to the iPads are not in school and not a pleasure or aspect. And by that, I mean looking on YouTube and doing that. They certainly have that time in the downtime to do that. But during learning, most of the young people now know they need to get on with the task, otherwise they will be spoken to and everything will be locked down. So it's more free now than it was at the start of the project. But yeah, Apple Classroom Manager is really good for locking young people into the task you want them to do.
But also, most of our worksheets as well are done through SimWriter or Communicate & Print. Do you examples you saw in the videos is quite texty? Do you use a lot of those for your worksheets on Showbie?
It's a mixture. So we had to look at how do we use, as you say, different formats for young people who have different abilities. So Showbie does allow you to use that wide range of texts and formats, because we have got some young people who use it a lot for communication. So the traditional I want with the coloured semantics, all of that is used in there. So it does. I'd say the main area of development for us is around profound and multiple learning difficulties. But if you want to chat later around a certain level of young person, I'm more than happy to connect you with a member of staff who's working with that group on what they use and how they do that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Liz, could I ask a question, Liz?
Go for it. Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this. It's really inspirational. I just want to ask, number one, Reese seems to be down this road in our group and gave me an answer to this, but I'm wondering, has your schools become more paperless as a result of this with the adults as well? And secondly, have you done any research about life beyond school and the impact of the work you're doing in terms of pupils then when they've left you?
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly, from the business perspective, we've saved an absolute fortune, which is the one I'll have to have a conversation with you offline about.
No.
In relation to photocopying, printing, it's almost paid for itself.
And recording, Jenny, and
yeah, we're going to come into that in a second because But I think that I think you're exactly right in picking that up, and we'll because we've not really got the solution there yet. I'll talk a little bit about where we think we're going with that in a second or two. And then your second point in relation to research, absolutely
left.
Absolutely. And at the minute, just the statistic on employability for young people that were working at level 2 and above, 75% of our young people now moving into the world of work or volunteering. Well, when you think of the statistic of 4% across the board in our sector of people moving into that, we are having a massive impact. We are doing a research module with some colleagues in the university. Now, interestingly, that it's difficult to sort of unpick whether it's our curriculum offer or whether it's the technology. Can you see what I mean?
Yeah.
They're now so entwined that actually it's difficult to sort of say what's making the difference. We hope that our curriculum is quite innovative and exciting, but we think that the laying the technology over that has taken it to that next level.
Great, thank you very much.
Can I just ask something as well? What are there kids that actually can't access their learning through the iPad? Because we had this issue over lockdown with children with complex needs, autism, where the technology was not a route that they were going to be able to use. So we had to use those resource packs. So yeah, just wondering about that.
We'd never say can't, Marie. We'd say we've not quite found the solution yet. So I think that it's really tricky, isn't it? With groups, young people with multiple learning difficulties and challenging behaviour, and those young people with multiple learning difficulties is a really tricky discussion at this point in time. We've seen real green shoots around how we can start to adapt the technology, but we're a long way off getting there with that. We totally accept that. It's still very driven. It's still adult-led, particularly young people with multiple learning difficulties. Yeah. Linking switches, etc., to the technology we can now do, but it's still driven by an adult most of the time. I think it's fair to say. Yeah. But I know that what we're trying to do is work with the teams. One of the wonderful, I know it comes across as though we're Appleites, because I now wear brown shoes and no tie anymore. So I'm obviously and slim jeans. So I've got to obviously now work for Apple somewhere down the line. But their responsiveness to listening to our sector is something I've not experienced really. Their opportunity to speak to people at the highest level in Cupertino, and we're not talking like somebody who's a manager in one of the Apple shops in Manchester. This is talking to people who sit around with Tim, etc., to say we want to make a difference for that group of learners. How do we do it? Now, we would rather partner with the best minds in the world, because we've not got that solution yet. We can't find that solution on our own. But we would rather partner with lots of us across the UK, lots of us across Western Europe, to actually find that solution.
I think one of the group of learners you're talking about, during lockdown, we did have learners who disengaged and found the accessibility to using the iPad really difficult. So we did the paper packs and the creative packs to go home. But what we also did, which was really well received with our families, and again, something we're looking at developing, is there's lots of brilliant resources online, but they didn't connect with that young person. So the staff recorded attention autism, sensory circuit videos, and then the adult facilitated the young person accessing that. And because it was their teacher, their familiar staff, they had the same resources at home as the teacher was using, they really started to engage in the use of the technology. And the best feedback we had from families is they actually had an insight into how we work with their child, and it's perhaps changed how they work at home with their child and given them top tips. Some families requested, because we always did morning routine of washing faces and brushing teeth, we recorded that because it was a battle at home that that they didn't want to have, and that had a huge impact. So I think it's really working with the families or the person who will facilitate the use of the technology in order to engage with the learning. You know, it isn't perfect, but it's being creative and finding ways around that.
Is that okay?
Yeah, is that okay? Well, do you want me to start sharing again, Liz?
Yes, I think so.
We're going to run out of time.
Yeah, we'll whiz
We're
through.
going to have to skip bits and bobs here. I'm really sorry, guys. I'll keep talking about assessment and progress. We're really struggling. I don't know whether you guys are around assessment systems, making them meaningful. We're really exploring how we don't duplicate work for our teachers, don't ask teachers to fill in things that are sitting on shelves that are right for their head teachers, something that's real for our families, real for the children, so they understand what learning really means, where they've learned. So we're a long, long way off all of that. We believe that the technology is part of the solution, particularly around capturing film and capturing audio clips. But there's a huge piece of work that's happening. Jenny's leading on that in all of our schools with our school leaders on that area. So we're fortunate because we've got a bit of a blank sheet of paper at the minute to have another think about what assessment means for our learners. But we're really, really interested in how we can ensure that we can monitor progress with a really, really clear impact measure at the end of all of that. So that's a piece of work that's ongoing.
Nope. Okay, we'll go past that one because we've done it. So we'll come on to the student impact. And it has done all of these things. And I talked then as well about the impact on families due to COVID, but increased motivation in students. And that refers back to that evidence you saw there in Dougie's class of young people perhaps who weren't as engaged. They're really motivated to learn. And we've seen that from early years all the way up to our 18, 19-year-olds. High confidence levels with the use of technology. Our young people absolutely love that in a classroom where traditionally the teacher's the expert, they are the experts in the technology. And they love being better than us, and they love being able to show us how to do things that maybe we can't do. And it's really nice that we're not the teacher, we're not the expert, they become that. Yes, we've got the subject knowledge, but they've got the knowledge in technology, and it's really changed the dynamics of the classroom. Opportunities for collaboration. So some people fear that when everyone has a device, there'll become isolation in a classroom. What we've actually seen is more collaboration, that the young people can collaborate using some of the inbuilt apps or using Shobi and work together, and they will actually critique each other's work and create things for each other and be able just to airdrop it to each other. So that certainly has not been an issue. Organizational benefits. I was one of those students who had 15 bags, 15 pencil cases, but could never find anything in the lesson when I got to maths. I suddenly didn't have a set square. Carrying around an iPad rather than lots of bags and lots of different things is so much easier for our young people. And then we just resource the classes up for other bits they may need if they're using pens and pencils or paints. But definitely as well for staff, being organised, being able to upload your work so it's ready for that lesson is certainly proven, rather than waiting at the photocopier that's jammed and your lesson starts in 5 minutes. Knowing it's up there on the iPads is absolutely brilliant.
Can I just pick up the collaboration issue? I mean, we've got a big section about workforce, and we're not going to be able to cover it because we're going to run out of time, guys. We do get quite carried away with ourselves with this, as you can imagine. But the other bit around the collaboration is our staff collaboration. And one thing that we talk about is that this has been driven from the bottom, really. This is Jenny and I and our leaders facilitating the journey that we're on. But the reality is that this has really got energy from our TA team, from our support staff team, from our personal care assistants, from some of our teachers. And it's interesting that there's a range of colleagues across all of our organisations really collaborating. So we set up opportunities on on all of our internal management systems where they can all work as departments. They can all share ideas. That's part of what they do. We also have a YouTube channel, which is copyrighted. And again, if anybody has something that they're particularly good at or they've seen that works really, really well, then they'll put a little clip up there of a 2-minute clip, and then all of the colleagues can actually access that. So they're able to say, you know, I've seen this in using Word, or I've seen this using whatever it will be, and they can really, really share that sort of expertise, which goes back to, you know, one of our missions around learning for all really early on.
And I won't go over the rest. I think the other one that's really important is that independence. It has given our young people a level of independence that has really challenged them and stretched them, but it's fantastic to see. Okay, I'll just whiz through these. We've talked about them, but you know, this is a quote from a student. This quote from a member of staff was talking to about what I was talking about before, being able to voice record and tag it rather than having to sit and do the traditional marking, and being able to access that really, really easily. It's lovely seeing a member of staff leave work with an iPad rather than 120 books. Right, we've got another video here, and this is really short, but this is the reading clip, and I really, really want to share this because it is just...
Hi, I'm Michelle Shortall and I work at Springbrook Lower. I'm one of the TAs here. We use our iPads every day. They've been really good. I think they've opened up our curriculum to our kids. They make it a lot easier for some of them to access the learning. So one of our pupils in my class in particular is Bradley. Coming into our school when he couldn't read at all, he's come in, we've got him on the reading scheme of Rising Stars. He's working his way through the books and he's reading really well. So what we found with Bradley is using the speech to text feature on the iPad really worked. It meant that he didn't have to try and write down the words first. He could just speak it to the iPad, it would type it for him, and then as his confidence grew, he started to type more and use the speech less. And we found that now it's just really improved his confidence.
Hi, I'm Bradley and I've been at Springbrook for nearly a year. When I first started here, I could only read my name, and from that year to this day, I can read my math homework very good. I've been reading books, and I'm super good at it now.
I really wanted you to see that clip. We're really proud of Bradley. He joined us during lockdown and reading his name, and now he's on reading books. And if you walk in, he just wants to read to you. He's amazing.
I'm going to skip through the next three or four slides, which is all about our workforce and how it's enabled our workforce and supported our workforce. We all of our staff are supported through Apple Teacher. And that we give them time to be able to work through that. So there's a full training and development program for all of our workforce in relation to ensuring that they have the proper support and time to be able to devote to iPads. Probably like you guys, we're also now thinking about our wellbeing strategy for our teams. And we're now exploring, you know, what working from home means, how we can work remotely, how we can share staff between all of our schools. What that starts to look like. It's probably going to take us about 12 months, 2 years to work all of that through, but we're thinking about things in a very, very different way. We really are struggling to appoint people to senior executive levels within the Northwest, and we believe that we are at fault for that because we're not mirroring the sort of role well enough. And we need to think about how we do that better. And I know that we're going to get some support from you guys on that. So from the challenge on that. So we're looking forward to sharing your journey on all of that. And the next one is comms. We've learned that the comms previously was quite poor. What we thought was strong with working with families, particularly, and with our communities and our governors. And I think technology, and over the last 14 to 15 months, we've really evaluated how effective we have been, and our families, particularly around things like parents' evening, EHC, annual review meetings, etc. Us doing it in a very different way has proved massively more positive than them coming in and you know, spending time queuing outside classrooms and all of that. So our comms strategy, we're trying to make much more responsive a much more, again, I use the word dynamic, but the opportunity to happen there and then. So big work on our comms strategy. We're fortunate with our buildings that we have got quite modern buildings, got a lot of investment in our buildings in the Northwest. But again, if people are looking at designing buildings, etc., I think it's really helped us think about how we can use technology to make learning much more 21st century, rather than thinking about tradition. And I know that the government has a particular way. We have schools where you have to abide by certain regulations, and they can be quite restrictive. And actually, learning is an awful lot more now, and we're finding that the young people want to engage much more in independent learning. So we're trying to create spaces within our schools for that to occur.
I think as well, just to complement that, it's really, really important that you've got that technological infrastructure when you're rolling a project out like this. There's nothing more frustrating than giving a class a set of iPads and the Wi-Fi doesn't work in that room or that space.
Yeah. Likewise with our governors and our trustees, we are challenged at times by their engagement. We have brilliant, really committed governors and trustees, but at times they can't meet at certain points. So again, all of our governors, all of our trustees have similar access to technology. So again, we're looking at how we use that in a very, very different way. And the things that really turn our governors and trustees on is clips of children. Not all of the business stuff. They sort of have to do the business stuff, but they are motivated by seeing the young people achieving and learning. So we're trying to understand what that means for our meetings and our schedules, etc. So we're going to 2 minutes on. Oh, we haven't time for training and development.
Okay.
2 minutes on lockdown.
Yeah, so we'll just quickly whiz through. We'll forget that activity. So as we all know, lockdown happened, and we were in, we were out, we were open, we were part open, we were every way in between. We were in a good place, and we've talked about the place we were in, to go from on-site to distant learning. These are some of the challenges that we faced it immediately when that first lockdown happened, which was the safeguarding. Someone mentioned there around parental capabilities in young people being able to access health and wellbeing and staff training. We worked really hard to make sure our smooth wall filter did the job at home as well as it did here. And I'm not going to take any credit for that. That was our techie team. We decided to use Shobi as a platform rather than Teams or Zoom, and that was because we could control the calls, the emails, the chats and the contact. We used Teams for our staff, but Shobi was a really, really safe way that young people were not able to contact each other via that platform without us knowing. The National Online Safety, and we pushed out our own self-service app, so young people could download the apps they were being asked to use in their lessons. We've not got time for it, so I'm really sorry. It's lovely of a parent with lockdown. Health and wellbeing, the iPads allowed us to connect with staff who were in school or working at home with suggestions on what to watch, where to go, well, wherever you could go. And we had lots of competitions with students set across the mat, so not just in their school. The students absolutely loved this. They thought they weren't learning, but the learning going on in creating that is far superior than, you know, a worksheet sent home. Staff also had their own bake-offs and competitions. It was, and again, they used the platform of Shobi to do that. We created staff and student video and music clips. And we've touched on staff training, but it is an absolute integral part of rolling out our programme, was to be able to train and support our staff. Graham's mentioned our new tube that we set up on our teams. And we did online training throughout as the technology moved on, even through COVID, and we needed staff to be up to date. I'm just going to have frozen.
So just to finish off, guys, I hope you've got a flavour of what we're trying to do up in the Northwest. It's a balmy 28 degrees up here. We're melting in this room. It's red hot. This is where we think we need to go yet. We're exploring blended approach to learning, what that means, particularly for our SMH children. Interestingly, a huge amount more engagement when they were locked down than they are when they're on site, which was fascinating. Workforce reform I've touched on. We really want to understand what that means for our colleagues. This isn't just about duvet days. This is a wholesale reform of how we approach the sector and what we do with our colleagues, how we work with our colleagues, how we can attract the very, very best people to work with our children, and how we can ensure that they stay working with our children is really important. I talked about progress for our learners. We're doing lots of work around understanding what that means, developing systems, etc. We still, I think, have got a way to go about valuing technology. I still despair at times when we hear, oh, young people can't take their phones into schools. I still despair at times about our exam system. It can be frustrating at times because we see the value of what technology can achieve with our young people. We're really interested in what school days look like now. Whether we need to start later, etc., whether we can do things very, very differently around giving the young people real ownership of their timetables, not necessarily having a timetable, but having tasks at certain points that they need to be completed by, but allowing them that opportunity to do that when they want, how the technology can support that. We're really, really keen, colleagues, to work with you if you are interested in supporting us with our journey. We are happy to support you guys as well. So this is about collaboration and working together. This isn't just about one person understanding, having all the solutions. We certainly haven't got that. And as I spoke to the colleague before, we're not in any way suggesting that we're the finished article. With certain groups of young people, it is really, really challenging and tricky to understand how technology plays a part in their world. The good thing is that we've got colleagues who are absolutely chomping at the bit to find that solution, who are passionate, going back to one of our values, passionate about getting it right for those young people because of the affordability aspect. Not every young person can afford a £15,000 communication tool. Everybody can afford a £250 iPad. And if they can't, then we'll buy it for them. So it's one of those, it's a real challenge to get that message across, really. And then obviously one of the things that we try to do is we share our experiences. We're really, really passionate about making sure that people understand the journey that we're on, but most importantly, around all of these messages about what our young people can achieve and what young people with additional needs, disabilities can actually achieve within communities and within our society. And we believe that technology has played a massive, massive role in empowering them and therefore taking that message to a different level within our communities in the Northwest. So thank you so much for all of your attention. I'm sorry that we always get carried away with time. We always get carried away with time. That's who we are, and we really would welcome colleagues an opportunity to share our journey with you and learn from you guys as well. And any questions that people have got, I don't know if there's time now, Liz, Sue, or whether you want to cut off or whatever.
If there's any burning question, we can go with it, but we're up to time. I think what you're doing, Graham and Jenny, is leaving us wanting more. I mean, that's certainly how I feel. I found that really fascinating and inspirational. You talked about your values, and the reason I think possibly why when I first heard you, Graham, at the Education Policy Institute was that there is an alignment with what you're doing and our values at CP, which is to do with challenge. Obviously, we're called challenge partners, but that excellence, equity, innovation, collaboration, courageous leadership, which is what we believe in. And I think you've shown that in abundance with such honesty and authenticity. So I'm hugely inspired.